welcome back. My name is Charity Lambert. I'm a makeup artist and I am here to make your life a little bit easier. I love to find different tips and tricks that work with makeup to make different skin types have the best results they can possibly get. And as you hit a certain age, and I always say this in my videos, skin just kind of shifts all around, and what works one day does not work the other day, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? And I am honestly here to say you are doing nothing wrong. Sometimes your skin just wants to misbehave, and that is that. What you need to have is a toolbox full of tricks that you can rely on, that you might just start to know, like as you go throughout the year, you'll start to see which point in the year your skin needs what. And so I've been through many of the seasons now with my LimeLife products. And in this case, this is a special video I am dedicating to my friend Leah. She wanted to find out a blend that would be wonderful for creating a fuller coverage. And though I have many options to do that, there's one in particular that I like a lot, and I haven't shared it on here. So I thought it was a perfect time to share with you my favorite recipe to achieve that in the most natural way. First thing we're gonna do is always moisturize, hydrate, make sure your skin is really set up for the foundation. Now that can mean you've just washed your face. If you're super dry, you wanna do your skincare just before you do your makeup because it will have the most hydration locked in. So when you put your makeup on, it's gonna just go on the best it possibly can. If there's been a little bit of a break between when you did your skincare and when you're putting your makeup on, you're gonna wanna add in more moisture. Maybe you wanna spray your face with a little bit of rose water or just water, put on your lotion. In my case, I do skin therapy. And then, because spring and summer is coming and we all need to make sure that we're using our SPF, you're gonna wanna make sure that you use your LimeLife by Alcone Perfect Sunscreen. It does have a built-in primer. It has some anti-aging ingredients in it. It is a great product, and you honestly shouldn't go a day without sunscreen. Truly, it is 80% of our aging comes from the sun. So if you just get used to applying it, you will not even think about it. I know it seems like one more step, but it is the one thing that I think people should not be skipping. So if your skin is a little on the dry side, you can put a little bit of oil or one drop wonder under it. It does spread a little bit easier. I already went ahead and put it on, but just to show you, like, it does spread very nicely. It doesn't leave your skin white, even though it is a zinc formula. But just some people, if they're super dry, you'll wanna make sure you have a little bit of extra moisture underneath there. I already went ahead and did that, like I said, so I'm just gonna go straight into the priming stage. So first base primer is our go-to. It is oil-free, it is silicone-free, it works really well with our products. It has vitamin B6 in it, which is gonna help to actually improve the state of your skin while you wear it. So it helps to decrease redness, it helps to make your pores appear smaller. There's just a lot of things that the primer does. It helps your fine lines stand out less. It helps the makeup to stay on longer because it helps your skin to create a temperature that is more compatible for the makeup so it doesn't overheat and therefore vaporize, all the things. Anyway, so we're gonna start off with that guy. Some people think they don't need the primer, and honestly, the primer and setting spray are almost like the best tricks I can impart, because honestly, they really do seal in the makeup. If you haven't been using them and you haven't been overly happy with your makeup, you're gonna wanna take that. That's gonna be your next step before you do any of these extra tricks. You're gonna make sure you have these on hand because they really do make a difference. I feel like they're the most underestimated products that we carry. Now, if you've tried a silicone one, you probably didn't love the foundation, it slipped around. And that I've mentioned this in other videos, so I won't go ahead and talk about it now, but I did want to say that because sometimes I forget and people are like, oh my God, this foundation's like slipping around everywhere. Then I find out they're using a silicone primer. So if that happens to be you, no big deal. You didn't know, now you do. So the next thing you're gonna do after you have that on, let it sit, it almost dries immediately. Okay, so there's a few ways to go about this, and the way I'm showing you today for this particular coverage is going to be blending a couple things together. It is well worth it, trust me on that. It is not difficult. The thing is, if you have a lot of redness, say you have rosacea or something like that, you're gonna want to color correct that first, if it's the type that needs it. Some people, with just this recipe alone, they don't actually need to color correct. So you might wanna try this first without the color correcting stage. And then if you see the red kind of popping through, then you can try the other option, which I'll show you now just in case that does happen to be the situation. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little bit of the pea green concealer here. I'm just gonna put it onto the palette like I always do. You're just gonna wanna blend it in there. That really helps to break up the formula. It will go on your face a lot better. Some people go right into the concealer. If that works for you, that's totally fine. This is just a kind of an in-depth tip to make it work the best every single time. Now you can do two things. You can mix a little bit of oil into this formula just to make it a bit softer. That's what I'm gonna do here. You don't have to, but I tend to find best results with doing a little bit of dew date inside that formula as well. You can mix it on here and sort of just leave it there and use it next time as well, as long as your environment isn't super cold. If it is, you're gonna wanna heat it up again when you use it the second time. Okay, so a couple ways you can put it on. You can put it on with your sponge, you can put it on with brush number 5. This is a diffuser brush. So you basically just go into wherever you need to do a bit of that redness covering. We always do this part first, color correcting, just because you're gonna add in your foundation on top and bring your skin back to a little bit more of a normal color. You're gonna wanna make sure that you do blend this in very well so that it's got a very even looking layer. Now, if you're one of those people, stuff needs just a little bit of the blender sponge to pounce it out, you can go ahead and do that with this. Sometimes I just need it, I don't know why. Other times it's just fine. Again, skin is just, sometimes they can be finicky. It can be really finicky. So good to have tricks in your toolbox so you can kind of know what to do when. Especially, it depends on the time of the month. Sometimes there's times where maybe hormones come into play and just skin is a little bit drier. So I think that's pretty good for canceling out. I get a little bit red in the nose. I have a little bit of a histamine issue. So it can just sometimes show up and other times not be there. So I just put on a little green just to make sure we're good. Then the next thing we're gonna do is create our formula. Maybe you didn't have to do that part. You'll just go right into this guy. So I have my perfect complexion palette. Okay, so I've got my skin color there and I've got my brightening concealer there. And so what I tend to do is use my skin color for this one because it is going to be with my foundation. So take a little bit of foundation. You don't really need a whole lot, and you just mix it onto here. Then you're gonna take a little bit of your facial concealer. Now this is where you can really play with the formula and see where you want to end up. So you might try this formula a couple times to figure out, do you need more concealer or do you need more foundation? So you're gonna add in the concealer right into it. Now, you could use it blended together. It will be quite heavy. I do find if you add in a little bit of dew date, it will give you the most beautiful formula. So if you add dew date to the foundation straight up, it will give you more of a BB cream style coverage, which is very light. How I find it best to counteract that. So you do concealer a little bit heavier with your foundation and the dew date. And so this formula is for people that are really worried about it being cakey. Maybe they have some dry skin patches. This formula should override a lot of that for you because the oil in it will help to kind of minimize flakes. It won't let it pick up patchy in spots. It's just really gonna make it foolproof. Unless you have super oily skin, you probably don't need all the extra oil added in. You probably don't even have these issues. So I'm just gonna say, give it a try, see which one works for you. Now you can use 2 different brushes to put it on. You can actually even use the sponge. The method you put it on kind of depends on you. I usually go between the diffuser, brush number 1, depends on the day. I think today I'm gonna try brush number 1. And then sometimes what I do is just pounce it out with a little bit of the Blenderful. So you're gonna see me do that. And what I always say is you wanna kind of build up to your coverage. So don't spend too much time caking it on initially and blending it out. You're gonna put on a layer, blend it out, and then another layer and blend it out. It's just a little bit more realistic looking. So I'm gonna go into and so you don't need if you're using this for powder, it's okay. You can swirl it off on a towel in between and it will actually be good to go. It doesn't hold on to excess product. I love our brushes so much. And I'm just gonna show you basically on one side of my face because then you're gonna get to see the difference it makes between the 2 sides. And like I said, you might not even need the green concealer in this case. gonna re-dip there, go a little bit onto my nose. Now the nose tends to be the area where I'll take a little bit of a blenderful and pounce it out more, just because I find that for some reason, probably the shape of the nose and the brush together, it doesn't really pick up quite as well as I would like. So this is where having a blenderful on hand is just a really good option. So now I dipped into my product and I'm gonna just go onto my nose. Now this I used dry. Some people like to use it wet or damp, and that's totally fine if that's you. I used to be that way, and then I started using it dry, and I don't know why I started to like it more. I just did, and you know what? That could change by summer. I find that, again, when there's humidity in the air, stuff just goes on so differently. I always leave the concealing part for last. So now you can kind of do your neck. You know, I always tend to bring it down, which I already did before, so I'm not gonna do that again. But give it a little bit of a rest period, just a few minutes to sort of settle to your skin before you look at it again and you say, do I need a little bit more coverage somewhere? Sometimes for me, that's a little bit in here on my nose. And you can go in and start to add in that little bit extra where you need it at that point. So that is my one side, and that is the other side. So you see that just total shift, and it looks like natural skin. It's it's a beautiful coverage. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this side, like I said, and we're gonna do a little bit of concealing there. So for the concealing part, you can go into it as per usual. You can choose to put a little bit of oil in it too, but I wouldn't recommend using the due date under your eye because of the essential oils in it. It might actually make your eyes water. So I tend to go and if I wanna do, so say my under eye is super dry. So if you're ever having issues with your concealer being dry, it can just be that you need to use a little bit of your iris to exfoliate under there. I talk about this in the iris video. But sometimes it can just mean you're really dry in general. You just need to drink a little bit more water. It's pretty much a crystal ball as to what's going on inside your body if your under eyes are super duper dry. So in a pinch, if you're like, okay, well, I don't have time to drink all the water, what you can do is put a little bit of the One Drop Wonder and just pounce it on before, kind of towards the beginning of when you're actually setting up your base around your face, like your whole priming stage. Add a little bit of One Drop Wonder in there, let it soak in. Give your face even a spritz of rose water just before that so that you have extra moisture sinking in. And then you can do your concealer at that point. And then what I would do is I just wouldn't spend a whole lot of time adding in powder at that point. So basically what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of powder, and then if there's a spot, and I have one kind of right there, that tends to, it's a little crease line, I'll dab it on that crease line and that's it. And when I spray my Time Setter spray, it will set my under eye. That's if I'm really dry and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't want to take a chance. If it's summer and my face is hydrated, I can go in and set it. I almost need to because there's almost so much hydration that it's at risk for being too hydrated under there. So let's set this bad boy. Okay, so what you can do is either the back of a blender full, you can go in like that and just kind of stamp it out. That's one option. Now, if you are using the HD color powder, if you're like, okay, really wanting the most fullest coverage you can possibly get, you can use that as well. Just know that it will go one shade darker on top of foundation, sometimes up to 2. So normally I'd be this color in the summer, which is 3, but I'm 2 when I'm doing over foundation. So you gotta just be very careful because sometimes even 2, because it's just, winter is just finished here or in the middle of finishing, sometimes that can be a little too dark for my skin as well. I am an olive 1 right now. So if you go in, just don't take too much and you can kind of just stamp it out. I don't use that powder under my eye. I find it too heavy. And you don't really need it as long as your under eye is concealed. Okay, so then you're gonna go to the top and just kind of add in. Now, if you were gonna do any sort of cream contouring, that sort of stuff, there's tons of tips I wanna share with you guys. You would obviously do that before you set it. So this is just if you're like, you're gonna throw some blush on top, maybe some bronzer, and away you go. It is the most beautiful coverage. There's nothing like it. So blend of foundation and concealer to your liking with a little bit of Due Date. If you do not like Due Date for some reason and it's not good for your skin, you can use One Drop Wonder for this. I find Due Date when mixed in with my makeup is totally fine for my skin. However, if I use it underneath my makeup, sometimes I can run into problems with a breakout or two. Don't understand it. I've checked out the ingredients. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, even from a molecular standpoint, but that's okay. I have figured out that I can use it on top of my makeup, and I'm really happy about that. If you set all your makeup and you spray a bit of time setter on and it's still not quite as dewy as you want, you can take a little bit of that Due Date and add it back in. What I would suggest you do though is make sure you don't rub it. So kind of go in like this, and I kind of just pounce back onto my cheekbone. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish the other side, throw in a little bit of blush, and just show you how the finished product will look on my whole face. Okay, so the second half is now on. I threw on some blush, a little bit of bronzer, and the way you want to make sure you finish it off is with your setting spray, because you really want to seal all that in to get you the most longevity. Definitely if you're wearing masks, so that you don't have it rubbing off. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you in the next video.